All right, welcome into the next edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We are wrapping up the Elite Eight. Final Four matchup is set, and Sister Jean keeps dancing in her wheelchair. Did you see that meme that she had, or she was in? It said, Sister Jean, what did you give up for Lent? And she goes, losing. So, anyway, this is the Vegas Squares podcast. We are here live in studio. Spike's on his computer. He didn't get to appreciate the awesomeness of that meme or joke. But, Spike, I'm glad to see you finally made it. You know, I know it's a long trek, the commute from your place to the studio. So we're just glad you were able to get here safely.
Yeah, I got stuck in traffic. What do you want me to do?
Not get stuck in traffic. But anyways, so we got Token Tony on the mic. We got Spike. We got the producer behind the glass. Any thoughts? I didn't catch the Loyola Chicago game against, was it Kansas State? But the other three games to me seemed to be pretty intense. Villanova pulled away against your champion, Texas Tech. So you are, I think, officially out of the fray at this point.
Yeah, not only am I completely out, my bracket is completely dead, but I think I am at the best score that I can possibly get, and I am still about half of what I need to get into third place in our bracket challenge. So, I think I borked this one for the year.
Borked.
Hey, you did get the 16 seed right, so.
That's true!
He got the
that
UMBC.
Was the tiebreaker.
You know what's crazy, though, is like, you know, you banked the 16 seed, which is awesome because none of us did, and not many people have ever done. But it's only worth 1 point in the brackets.
Yeah, I noticed that after it happened. I thought there would be maybe some weighting based on seeding, but no, it's just if it happens in the first round,
it's just a point no matter what. I know, because I looked at it, I'm like, there's got to be something worth picking UMBC to upset Virginia. Like, nope, 1 point.
Yeah, and believe me, if I had known that, I would never fucking picked UMBC.
But you got it right. You got 1 more point. That whole bracket, I got 3 or 4 right.
Oof.
From start to finish in that region. I think I got 3 games.
Yeah,
right.
that region for me was the debacle.
Between Loyola, UMBC, between Nevada,
Buffalo beating
Buffalo. I think I got 3 games right in that whole bracket, that whole region.
That entire thing was just so fucked.
But it's like as screwy as that one was, as the other side of the region. I mean, you have 1 versus 1. I mean, it went chalk.
Yeah, that Final Four matchup I actually got right.
Yeah, you got those 2 right, correct? So you were the only one with 2 right, I think, out of the 4 of us sitting here.
Yes.
But looking at the standings, you and I are both eligible to win.
Yes.
Our bracket challenge.
Whatever.
So it all hinges on that game, though.
Yes.
If I'm looking at the brackets correctly, if Villanova wins, I overtake you. You currently sit in second place behind Desiree, but she can't improve because although she
her
has...
best score is 71, which is what she has.
Right.
Whatever.
Although she has Villanova, she has them losing to Duke, who doesn't exist anymore in the brackets.
Who unfortunately lost today.
No thanks to you.
Well, he picked Kansas.
Yep.
And so if Kansas wins, you stay ahead of me and overtake Desiree in first. And what do we have on this? A grand?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna bet a grand. I think we're gonna have to bet a grand on that game now.
Okay.
All right, fair enough. You want the line?
Yeah, it's 5, right?
It is 5. Spike, who are you taking? Kansas Villanova -5.
I have no earthly idea, so I'm going to jinx one of you and pick Villanova.
Fuck! Well, enjoy my parting gifts at the door. It was fun while it lasted.
Lay the favorite.
So, what are our overall thoughts of this bracket? I know Spike, basically threw darts at a wall, or worse.
And he had a few bullseyes, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the one, but I mean, what are your
And maybe literally the bullseye.
What are your overall thoughts, not just of the bracket you picked, but of the way the tournament's gone, whether it be for the positive or for the negative of college basketball?
I like it. I think this year with a lot of the underdogs coming through and debacle that you would think instead of having the higher seeds advance, we're having these underdogs come in and unbelievable fashion making like a Final Four appearance. So
Yeah, I mean, for as much as we saw the upset that you speak of, and that's going to be the talk of the tournament, it was all in one region. I mean, yes, Florida State made the Elite Eight, defeating Xavier and Gonzaga. But, I mean, Michigan, a 3 seed out of the, what are they, in the West bracket? I mean, they're not, at least to a lot of people who liked them as a sexy pick, they're not a surprise. Loyola's clearly a surprise, with the exception of, 9,000 people, according to ESPN.
yeah, I don't think that stat's right.
But, I mean, on the other side of the bracket, it's 1 versus 1. So for as many upsets and Cinderellas that we had, we're still here with the 1-1-3, and yes, we have the 11, but we still have 1-1-3. So for as much talk of the tournament being anybody can get in, we still have the majority of the dominant teams being able to navigate through that field.
Right. Well, I mean, good teams are always going to be good, and bad teams are always going to rise to the level of which they are capable. And sometimes that means that they're able to exceed expectations for a little bit, but I can't imagine anybody actually expects Loyola to win this thing, especially if they have to go up against either Villanova or Kansas.
Right.
So, it's
If they get past Michigan, I mean, at this point, you do look at it, I know what you're saying. I mean, they're an 11 seed, and the way the field navigates now is, I mean, they beat a 6 seed in Miami, who many thought were overrated. They beat a 3 seed in Tennessee, who many thought shouldn't have been a 3 seed. And then they beat, in the Sweet 16, help me out here, who did they beat in the Sweet 16?
Kansas State.
No, Kansas State was the Elite Eight. They beat Nevada, yeah. Who needed a 20-plus point comeback to beat Cincinnati. And then they had Kansas State, who was a 9 seed. So, I mean, their field didn't necessarily run them through the juggernauts. But, you can only beat, like we say, you can only beat who's in front of you at that point. So, could you see, is it harder for a team like, Loyola, an 11 seed, to get through a gauntlet like that? Or is it harder for a 1 seed sometimes to have to play an 8, a 4, a 2? You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, if Loyola was a 1 seed, they would not have got out of the region. More than likely. I mean, Who knows? That South region was bonkers.
No, absolutely.
But, I mean, Villanova, a stronger team, had to play, an 8, a 4, a 2. Excuse me, they didn't have to play a 2. They had to play a 5 in the Sweet 16. But, I mean, they had to play tougher teams than I think Loyola did to get to where they were. Does your place in the bracket really matter as much as the talent on your team sometimes?
Not necessarily. I mean, sometimes you could have that big upset in the first round and then have almost like a cakewalk to the Final Four.
Well, that's what we thought about Kentucky. I mean, when it was the Sweet 16, I'm looking at it, I'm like, John Calipari was complaining about his road to the Final Four being in the South region with Arizona, Cincinnati, Virginia, and then all of a sudden the Sweet 16 comes and none of them are around.
Yeah.
And then they lose. Yeah. So it was like, all right, Cal, what's your excuse now at this point? So, I mean, what do you think, Spike? Does it sometimes just matter where you were put into the bracket, or is it just, like you said, the talent comes through, Villanova, the better teams, but, I mean, we thought Virginia was the best team by seed in this tournament.
Right, and sometimes it's just luck of the draw, too, because it's not just about, seed versus seed. It's about matchup versus matchup. So if you get a good defensive team that can shut down a mediocre offensive team, then that defensive team should be able to win. So it's not, it's, I don't know, maybe the seeding is overrated a little bit. I know that you have to, the one plays the, 8-4-2, assuming everything goes.
Yeah, they play 16-8-4-2,
yeah. Then, we never have a 1 versus a 2 in all 4.
Not in men's, no.
Yeah.
In women's, it's all 1 versus 2 in the Elite Eight right now.
Yeah, in the Elite Eight, but, So I'm not overly concerned about how the seeding is done. It's about matchups, it's about who you're putting on the floor, and it's about the coaches knowing who to put out there at the right times.
Now, that kind of goes back to the committee, because the committee's already kind of been accused, not really denied, about they don't take the seedings as, after the number 1 seeds and maybe the number 2 seeds, they start to look at who would match up best by putting someone somewhere. Like we talked about, Oklahoma probably shouldn't have been in the tournament, yet they were at a 10 seed because it created a good matchup
with Rhode Island,
for the first, with Rhode Island, or and going forward with Duke. If they would have gotten past Rhode Island, they would have created a matchup with Duke, which would have been made for must-see TV. They didn't get that far, but that's not the point. The committee's kind of been accused, and like I said, not really denied, basically not using the strengths of the scheduling and the seedings from teams, where they should be. They're putting teams in place to create TV ratings, and that sometimes can create detriment. I mean, maybe they knew something about Buffalo, and they knew that Arizona, maybe with the scandal and with the 2 guys turning pro pretty much instantly, that they didn't really have their hearts set on playing college basketball anymore, and Buffalo was just hungry enough and good enough to beat them. Mm-hmm. It seems like they've kind of created I don't want to say playing God, but they've got their finger on this entire bracket. It seems like they're driving this now. I mean, the upsets, when I was younger picking brackets, upsets were fewer and farther between. It seems like now it's like, now the new question every year when the bracket comes out is, which 12 is going to beat a 5? Which 13 is going to beat a 4? Like it's guaranteed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember one of the analysts.
Are they even upsets anymore?
I remember on one of the analysts, when he was picking his bracket, he said all 11 seeds he took because he thought all of them could win.
Yeah, and now you've got 11 seeds who were playing in from a game before. I mean, Syracuse what did they make, the Sweet 16?
Yeah.
And they were in a play-in game. So it's just crazy. Like, I don't know if there's really the upset potential now. I mean, I feel like the first upset, like I really remember, is like Steph Curry's Davidson team. I don't remember who they beat, but they were like a 12 seed, and they beat a 5 seed, and they went all the way, I think, to the Elite 8 or Final 4. That was the first real instance I remember of
I believe they made it to the
upsets.
Elite 8 that year.
That one and George Washington, or is it George Mason?
George Mason, that was 2006. They were one of the 4 11 seeds since 1985 to make the Final 4.
You got George Mason, you got Loyola, you got VCU probably.
VCU in 2011, yes.
Okay.
The other one is LSU in 86.
Okay, so I would not have gotten that one. But I remember VCU was a high seed and made it to the Final 4. I can't remember if they were like a 12 or 11, but I mean, it doesn't seem so as far-fetched. Like you said, an analyst gets on TV and says he picked all 4 11 seeds. Mm-hmm. Like, he's either doing that for clickbait or he's doing that because he truly believes that they've got a good chance. So it's interesting. So, all right, so Spike has mushed me with Villanova -5. Michigan -5 as well. What are your guys' thoughts on that next Saturday? That's the first game of the 2.
Give me Sister Jean and the Loyola Chicago Ramblers.
Is it Loyola or Loyola?
Loyola.
Oh, yeah, it's not Loyola.
Loyola.
There's an O in there.
Yeah, as somebody who went to a Catholic high school and had to endure the torments of Sister Mary Mussolini, I'm very well aware.
Is that Benito's mom?
Yeah, pretty much. We had
Sister Mary Mussolini.
Yeah, definitely Loyola. But yeah, I'll Ramblers keep rambling. I'll take Loyola.
Yeah, you know what? I said it on Twitter a few days ago. Like, all right, I'm all in. So fuck it, I'm all in on Loyola. Are we taking the 5, or are we going to go all straight money line?
Risk it for the biscuit.
There we go.
I'll take the 5.
Risk it for the biscuit. No, I'll play it safe.
Yeah.
All right. So I was thinking about this week, and obviously I can't let it go because here we are, March 25th, and I still am not over UCF not getting a playoff spot in the football playoff.
I mean, and this March Madness, especially with a lot of underdogs coming in, I could see your mindset on.
Exactly. I mean, I understand 68 teams is a bit much, but at the same time, if we don't have 68 teams, does Loyola? Now you got me calling it Loyola, Chicago. I mean, okay, they were an 11th seed, so that's 41 through 44, right?
Yeah.
So if if college basketball had a 32-team playoff, Loyola's not even in this, according to the way that they should be seeding it.
Not just that, they miss it by a mile.
Yeah, they miss it by a dozen teams. So my question is I know we're here in March and we're 3 months removed from last season and 6 months removed from next season, or 5-ish months removed from next season. But, I mean, if you're the NCAA and you have two very different sports who do things two very different ways, I mean, maybe not very different, because the college football does have a playoff.
Yeah.
Even though the playoff is not determined on the field as far as selecting. You're not given a spot based on your performance. You're given a spot based on partly your performance, but partly if this room full of 12, douchebags think you're good enough to be on the field.
Well, we'll put it nicely and call them punters.
Yeah, college football punters. And so my question is yes, there's a certain sense of that same elitism in college basketball, because if you don't win your conference tournament, especially if you're one of the mid-majors, you virtually have no shot. But most of the mid-majors who enter this tournament, Gonzaga's, Loyola, Murray State, these guys win their tournaments. Like, okay, so UCF won their tournament, essentially, but had no shot. I mean, is March Madness kind of a wake-up call for the CFP to say maybe it's time for expanding, because all it can do is increase revenue, which is got to be first and foremost to any business. Mm-hmm. I don't see a downside to increasing based on what we've seen in college basketball. I feel like college basketball should be a barometer to basically show football, which is also run by the NCAA, to say, hey, maybe you should open your eyes and consider expansion at this point.
I remember, and somebody's going to crucify me because I don't remember exact numbers on this, but when college football was talking about moving from the BCS to the football playoff, they kept saying, well, no, the way we have it now, the BCS is worth, say, $300 million that gets divided up amongst the schools, and that money pays for scholarships and everything else. If we move to a playoff system, we're going to lose money. Eventually, public pressure and everything else got on them, so that when they decided to move to the playoff system, they said, all right, BCS is gone, we're moving to the playoffs. And immediately, ESPN kicked in. They said, we'll give you $600 million for the TV rights. And all of a sudden, they realized, oh, shit, we've been costing ourselves $300 million every year.
Well, yeah, because you're going from 1 game to 3 games.
Right. So, it makes very big logical sense that they should expand the college football playoff. The problem is not whether or not it makes sense. It's the fact that the NCAA is about as corrupt as FIFA or the International Olympic Committee, because they are just impossible to penetrate when it comes to trying to get in new ideas or trying to expand things or make changes for the better. Not only, and I mean, we can talk about whether or not college athletes should get paid till the cows come home, but this is just an organization that is unbelievably inept and corrupt and just run by the worst people on earth.
That's a bold statement. I mean, the reason a lot of businesses aren't immediately accepting of change is because it can backfire on them. I don't know in a situation where how any form of playoff expansion can backfire on this in college football. I mean, if you go to 8 or if you go to 16, I think 16's got to be the max. Like we talked about earlier, you have your 9 conferences, and 7, we'll call them the at-larges. Because you have your Power 5, you have American, Mountain West, Conference USA, and MAC. So there's your 9 conferences. Am I missing one? I don't think I'm missing one. For football? No?
That sounds right, yeah.
Okay, so you have your 9 conferences. Right. Then you have your 7 available slots. If you can't win your conference, Alabama, then you still have an ability to get into the playoff as a 7-field at-large team. If you can't win a conference and you can't be one of the top 7 teams that didn't win your conference, I think you really don't. I don't know if you have a a bid at that point. And the thing is, we have the 68-team field NCAA tournament, and there's always snubs. There's always going to be snubs no matter where you cut that off. So the 17th team in the nation's going to be like, well, it should have been me. And it doesn't, hey, look.
Yeah, I'm a fan of expanding the playoff, but I would say 16 would be the max based on everything what you said. But you look at the size of the amount of teams that are available in Division I college basketball compared to the size of teams available in Division I college
football. Well, there's
football.
a third of the teams.
Roughly, yeah.
So you have a third. I mean, there's 350 college basketball teams in Division I, and I believe there's 120, give or take, one or two in college football. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, realistically, let's take a look at what we have now. The AP Top 25 of last year. You have Georgia, who won the conference. Oklahoma won the conference. Clemson won the conference. Ohio State. And, I think it was USC. So there's your big five. You have UCF, who won the American.
Yep.
You have a MAC champion. You have a Mountain West champion. And you have a Conference USA champion, which I believe the Conference USA champion was Florida Atlantic at that point.
Sounds right.
Mountain West champion was Boise State. And to be honest with you, I have no idea who won the MAC. I'm just going to pretend and use Toledo at that point.
I was going to say it's either Toledo or Buffalo.
Okay, so let's just use Toledo at that point. So we have the 7 teams who would have made the playoffs based on this without winning a conference. You have Alabama, Wisconsin, Penn State, TCU, Auburn, Notre Dame, and Miami. So any one of those teams you could argue could be in a 16-team playoffs, correct, based on last season's performance.
Yeah.
Where I would cut the line off, and again, all these teams should not have been in. The next teams on that list are Oklahoma State, Michigan State, Washington, Northwestern, LSU. All teams who lost 3 or more games. If you lose 3 games in a college football season, 3 out of 13, you may have a case for getting in, but at the same time, you can't be surprised or upset or baffled why you're not in.
Right, but and it's not. We're never going to have a situation in college football like we did in the NFL, where a team goes 7-9, wins their division, and gets an automatic bid into the playoffs.
Right.
Like we're never going to have to worry about that. So yeah, I think a 3-loss season is, unless something catastrophic happens and the best team in the nation has 2 losses somehow.
And you actually forgot a division. There's actually 10 in college football. The Sun Belt.
Are they Division I? Okay, so that was Troy, right?
Appalachian State won.
Appalachian State won. Okay, so now we have 10 and 6 at large, which would leave out Miami based on this, or Notre Dame. Miami or Notre Dame. Which, head-to-head last year, Miami crushed Notre Dame in the regular season. So that may have been their barometer, even though the TV ratings love Notre Dame. So that would be a situation where you're talking about the 16th team getting in, not the 4th or 5th team getting in. Like I said, same with the NCAA college basketball tournament. If you can't get in the top 68, it's hard to have a beef.
Yeah. And FBS college football, there's 130 schools.
130, okay. I thought there was 120, so they must have added
right
a few.
around that.
Well, the whole Sun Belt was like Division II a couple years ago.
Yeah,
So-
the Appalachian State was definitely...
Yeah, Appalachian, Troy, all those teams were like Division II just a few years ago. So that whole 10-team conference or so probably made the 120 I was thinking about make 130. So there you go. So my point being is that you could realistically have half the top 25 getting in to into a playoff, and like you said, 1 through 8 can host games.
Hang on.
Oh, okay.
We need to point something out here.
Okay.
I just looked at Token Tony's screen.
Uh-huh.
He's using Bing.
Oh.
Yeah, he's
Why?
he's admitted that before.
Why?
I don't know.
I think the only reason people use Bing is to say, please go to google.com. Like, you may be the only person that uses Bing as an actual search engine.
I use Lycos. Does that exist, though?
I have no idea.
I've never heard of that.
What are some old search? I remember some old search engines like
Alta Vista.
I don't remember that
Ask
one.
Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves. I remember
there
Ask
you go.
Jeeves.
Yes.
The producer coming out of left field.
Proud of myself.
You're still not winning the bracket.
I'm sorry, but who's been in first? Wait a second.
Uh-oh.
Who missed one in the East? One team in the East.
And you're still
I
gonna
nearly
lose.
had a perfect bracket in that.
No. You had a
that
perfect
section.
region.
Yeah, whatever.
And
just
who's
saying.
going to win?
Not you.
Yeah, not you.
He might.
I might.
Kansas
There-
wins.
there's
No,
still
I'm
a
sorry.
chance.
I'm gonna root for you.
Oh, now she's rooting for Villanova.
Oh yeah, here, I don't like your chances.
Yeah, Spike. Did you not hear Spike pick Villanova? You know we're screwed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a mush.
I completely jinxed him. He's completely fucked on this one.
We'll just have my mom cheer for the other team.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
The bigger mush.
I was about to say I
Mush
don't like my
2.0.
chances then.
She's mush 2.0.
Make it mush.
So I don't know. To me, it seems. I know we're coming around a long story short, but it seems like this college basketball season, and maybe it's just because of what happened with UCF this year that I'm so focused on it, that I focus maybe more on it, because every year there's always, somebody who gets snubbed in the playoffs for college football, but this year it seems like a team, there hasn't been a team to go undefeated, not lose a single game, win all their games by 20 plus points, and the committee was like, nah, we're good. So I feel like maybe it's just my bias with everything that's gone on in this basketball season. I feel like this either could or should open up some kind of door to conversation on expansion to the playoffs, because the only thing it can do is give teams like that and Florida Atlantic and Appalachian State hope. Hey, look, we can play a college football season. We can go to Appalachian State, win this conference, and have a chance to play for a national title. And the NCAA, which is not paying us, as you so eloquently pointed out, can make another few $100 million by adding. I mean, you can use those bowl games to basically supplant these teams that no one gives a shit about and put them as playoff games. Or you can still have these bowl games and have the first 2 or 3 rounds of the playoffs. What is it? We got 16, 8, 4. Yeah, so you can get down to 4. You can have these games on home fields of these teams. Mm-hmm. So 1 through 8 would host 9 through 16. So in Alabama, who's an at-large who didn't win their conference, gets seeded. So there's 10 of them?
Yeah.
So they get seeded 11th.
Mm-hmm. They play,
and they would play. Who would they play? That would play the 6th seed. They would play the 6th. So you would seed the 10 champions. The Power 5 would probably end up being 1 through 5 every year. So UCF would play. Alabama would go to UCF and play UCF this year, and we'd get the game we asked for. Well, at least we did. We'd get the game. We'd get the game we asked for the last 3 months. I don't see the downside. The only downside is Alabama fan being scared to walk into UCF and get their doors blown in, which I don't believe would happen, but
I could see it being a close game, and UCF could possibly win it. I mean,
there's only one way to know. I mean, Loyola proved it. That's why you step on the court. If Loyola beats Michigan and Kansas and wins the freaking national title, that's why you step on the freaking court. Yeah. I mean, nobody's going to clown them as the best team in the nation. If Loyola plays Villanova in the title and you played that game 100 times, Villanova would probably win 51 plus times. They're the better team.
I would say.
I'm saying 51 plus. They'd win more times than Loyola would.
Yeah. I think you just hit on something there, maybe inadvertently, where you said,
of course I did.
If Loyola wins, nobody's going to crown them the best team in the nation. But I think the fallacy is that in college football, they have always wanted the national champion to be the best team in the nation, and they didn't want that to be disputed. So I think if they move to a college football playoff, it has to be not just we want to have playoffs to make more money. It has to be a mindset change that it's not about necessarily finding the best team in the nation. It's about finding the best team that can navigate through the playoffs and win the championship.
Well, they would be
entertainment dollars rather than
talent.
Yeah.
Well, they're at this point the only sport that tries to tell you who the best team is at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yes, we have a 14 playoff, but like I said, sometimes that fifth team may have lost at the wrong time, and they're actually one of the better teams. Or that fifth team may have never lost in their season, and they just got no shot. So, I mean, you look at, the NHL and the NBA, half the league makes the playoffs.
Yep.
And yes, I don't believe an 8 seed in the NBA has ever won a title, but there have been 8 seeds in the NHL to win a title.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and, yeah, I'm not even sure an 8 seed has ever gotten past a 1 seed in the NBA.
The Warriors beat the Mavericks one year. I remember that was a whole thing. That was
so one time.
I don't know. Let's have the crack research staff look up how many times an 8 seed has beat a 1 seed in the NBA.
Do it.
How many what?
How many times has an 8 seed beat a 1 seed in the NBA? I know it happens. I know it's happened at least twice. The Warriors over the Dallas Mavericks, and the Denver Nuggets, I believe, beat somebody. I know they beat somebody because I remember Mutombo laying on the floor like, nah. So, how good was my impression?
That was pretty close.
And he was like, and then I asked Mutombo, I was like, okay, you guys gonna win the title now? He was like, no. But anyways, point being is that it can happen. What's that?
94 and 99.
So twice. Mm-hmm. Denver versus...
It was the Nuggets and the Sonics. And
Nuggets beat the Sonics.
The Knicks?
No.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. It starts with the Knicks made 2 big trades. That's not what I want.
The Knicks made 2 big trades.
I'm seeing what you're saying, yeah.
I don't know what 2 these are. Let me look at it. The second one there.
All right, let's look at this.
Yeah, it was the New York Knicks, yeah.
Oh, they've made the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
But they weren't the only team. Okay, I was wrong. I thought the 8th seed... yeah, it's only happened twice, and I was only right about one of them. So, and the Knicks have made the finals. So there you go. My point being is that 8 seeds have a chance. If you just get into the playoffs, they've always said it. Anything can happen.
Yeah, you get the team hot at the moment. You don't want to come up against them. I mean, if you're the heavy set favorite, especially. I mean,
heavy set favorite.
Yeah.
Fat guy faves.
But I mean, this is exactly calling back to a couple episodes ago with the Southern Professional Hockey League, how they were moving to a pick your opponent playoff system for exactly that reason. It's that the number 1 seed doesn't necessarily want to face the team that's the hottest in the nation right now, the hottest in the league. That they may want to find like a 6 or a 7 seed that's cooled off a little bit, or has to do with matchups. But sometimes that number 8 seed is a team that was 9th, 10th, 11th, a week or 2 before the playoffs, and they just caught fire at the right time.
That is fair enough.
Especially if they have your number in the regular season too. On top of it.
Oh yeah.
Now, see, I got a more recent article from what you were looking at. Yes, in 2007, Golden State defeated Dallas. The 8 seed Warriors defeated the 1 seed Dallas Mavericks 4-2. In the most improbable first-round upset in NBA history, the pre-Steph Curry Warriors barely got into the playoffs with a 41-41 record. So they were 500. And they beat a 69-win Mavericks team.
Oof.
Wow.
So,
who were the defending Western Conference champions from a year ago.
Yeah, it needs to... The college football playoff needs to expand. I think the issue that we're going to see is that it's not going to go from 4 to 16. I don't even think it's going to go from 4 to 8. I think it's going to go 4 to 6.
But then what?
Give the top 2 seeds a bye week.
Okay.
And then you get 3, 4, 5, or 3 and 6, 4 against 5.
Kind of like the NFL playoffs says right now, yeah.
And then you give the top 2 seeds the bye, and then it goes from there.
Oh, there was one more. I'm sorry. The Sixers upset the Bulls after Derrick Rose tore his ACL in Game 1.
Oh, yeah.
So that one has kind of an asterisk on it. But it still counts. You're right, an 8 seed.
Counts.
But, so, yeah, I know 16's high, and they're not going to... College football's been doing this for 100-plus years. They're not going to make a drastic change from BCS to 4-team to 16-team within, 5 years.
Right.
I get that. I just think that there should be some kind of door or conversation opening to say, I don't know how negative any of this affects. Like you said, I mean, like I said, they're the only sport or division of sport that is telling you, trying to shove down your throat who the best team is. And they did that for so long, even pre-BCS era.
Oh, yeah.
Because even pre-BCS, they didn't even play a championship game. Based on polls and matrices, they gave you a champion every year. Up until, I believe, 1997 or 8. You had multiple champions. You had the APs, you had the coaches poll, you had the Harris poll, you had the Coley Matrix poll. These all crowned champions. And they umbrellaed, usually one team was umbrellaed into many of them. But, I mean, there are a lot of, Ohio State has claimed championships that they were not technically number one. Auburn has claimed championships. Alabama has claimed championships that they weren't technically in the majority of the polls. I mean, UCF, they're claiming this championship based on the Coley Matrix poll, where they were actually number one. Alabama's number one in every other form. But because this is not an uncommon practice pre-BCS and pre-playoff, they decided to kind of, it's almost like making a mockery out of it. Like, if Alabama can do it in 1941, why can't we now in 2017? Even though, yes, we have a playoff at this point, we were shut out of that playoff based on no reason. I mean, we put everybody you put in front of us, we defeated.
Even in the BCS era, you had that with, 2003 with LSU and USC.
When they,
Was that 03?
They played for a championship.
03 or 04? No, it was the one where LSU.
Oh, LSU claimed it and USC won it.
Right.
I have to look at that. Was that that wasn't Jamarcus Russell, was it?
03.
Was that the year where like 3 or 4 different teams claimed it?
I think it was only those two.
Yeah, it was only those two. LSU won like the Sugar Bowl or something, and they were claiming. Here you go. Stupid ads. Southern California was voted number one in the AP poll, and LSU was voted number one in the coaches poll, and they shared the 2003 national title.
Right, so that's even BCS era where they couldn't get it right and couldn't get a unified national champion.
Well, I think the BCS computers gave USC the title, but they had more higher rankings in other. BCS had a bunch of different, formulas and whatever. But I think LSU just held on to that. We were number one in the coaches poll, and there you go. So they claimed it. LSU went on to beat Oklahoma in that Sugar Bowl and claimed the BCS title, and USC went on to beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl and claimed the same BCS national championship. Therefore, the NCAA offered a split, even though a $31 million offer by the CEO of Gateway Computers, Ted Waite, for the game to take place, the battle never took place.
Wow.
Even people are putting up millions of dollars for these to play. You're right. The NCAA is not quick to make snap judgments, and nor are a lot of sports. I mean, you hear a lot of that with baseball. I mean, how long did it take for baseball to get replay in its most basic form? And now, baseball's making adjustments to speed the game up and put a runner on second base and try to make the game faster. And it's like, you're trying to accommodate. You're trying to morph yourself into something that's going to accommodate into the younger fan who's still probably not going to watch your game, while alienating the people who do watch your game. It might be a tough move.
Might be a lose-lose situation.
So maybe they're getting so much pressure in college football from the old guard. What do they call it? They call them something in basketball, and I can't think of the name. The Blue Bloods. The Blue Bloods. They're getting too much pressure at top from the Blue Bloods, who bring in a lot of money to say, hey, look, fuck these small schools. We don't care how much they cry, whine, and complain. It creates a good debate, and at the end of the day, Alabama hoists the trophy. So I don't know. It's just something I would like to see the discussion moved, but I have a feeling I'm outside of Orlando and a few of the alumni. I'm probably in the minority there. So we'll see. Anything else going on sports-wise?
Yeah, just the madness of March. So,
how are the National Women's Hockey League playoffs?
I was actually just about to mention it because their championship game was today, where the Metro Riveters beat the Buffalo Buttes 1-0. and took home the Isabel Cup for the first time in franchise history.
Congratulations to the Riveters?
Metro Riveters, yeah.
Where are the Metro Riveters from?
New York. New York
okay.
City. Yeah, they used to be the New York Riveters, and then they switched to Metro to try to...
What was Buffalo's team name again?
Buttes.
I knew that one. Actually,
then-
it came across my Twitter.
There's the Connecticut Whale and the Boston Pride.
Should they really name like a women's hockey team Whale?
Yeah, it's not the most flattering name, but they have the same color scheme as the old Hartford Whalers.
Hartford.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So there's how many teams? There's Buffalo, Boston, Metro, Connecticut.
Connecticut, yeah. There's 4 teams in the NWHL. The CWHL has 7 teams.
What's the CWHL?
That's the Canadian Women's Hockey League.
So why don't they try to morph and play each other?
That's actually one thing... Shit. I forget who it was. It was somebody from the U.S. Women's Olympic team. I think Hillary Knight? Maybe. One of the stars from that team was actually ranting about this not too long ago, is that the CWHL and the NWHL need to merge, but the CWHL just put 2 expansion franchises in China to try to grow the game over there and get the Asian market, that they're not looking to come down into the States quite yet. They do have a team in Boston called the Boston Blades, but I believe they went 1-25 this season, so they're not exactly competitive.
So do the teams from Canada go play the teams from China?
Yep. As far as I know.
But they don't want to come to America. Or, excuse me, they are America. They don't want to come to the United States.
Right, so they have, let's see, it's a team in Montreal, a team in Markham, which is outside Toronto. They have the Boston Blades. They have a team in actual Toronto. They have a team in Calgary. And then... God damn it. I just had a pop up here. Alright, and then the Kunlun Red Star, which is also a KHL team, but the CWHL team has adopted the same name and logo. And then the Vanke Rays, which I don't even know anything about them.
They're Vanke?
Vanke. If you know a different way to pronounce it, I'm all ears.
Oh, yeah, it's Vanka. Duh.
Vanka. Yeah, there we go. Like Ivanka?
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap it up there. Unless anything else is going on in women's or men's sports that's interesting.
Well, hockey playoffs are around the corner, but I mean, still have 2-3 weeks before.
We have about 2 weeks left. We'll do some chit chatting about the playoffs coming up.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the next time we speak, Vegas will have clinched their first playoff spot in franchise history, which would be pretty cool. Thought they'd do it tonight, but Edmonton's really good at letting goals in their net by the bunches.
Middle of next month, the charity poker tournament for Chai Poker. Was it April 14th, which is a Saturday, 8 p.m. at South Point Casino.
Yeah, so if you're in Vegas, come check them out on April 14th.
Yep.
8 p.m.
8 p.m. Saturday. Free pizza.
Yes.
Wow.
Free pizza.
That's all we care about.
I like pizza. I think we're going to have a booth there set up, so we may do a podcast there, we may not. I'm not sure. But
Fuck that, I'm going to play in this thing.
I'm playing it if I get it off.
Okay. Well, then I may do a one-man band podcast.
Alright.
Or I may buy a traveling mic. Or just hook up this Tascam to a microphone and go do play-by-play, because everybody loves play-by-play poker on
the radio.
on audio style.
Oh, God. So when I was doing the poker podcast, which I haven't actually recorded in 3 months, nor have I edited the last 2, so we haven't put out an episode in 5. But that was the one thing that I always told my co-hosts is absolutely no hand histories while we're doing a podcast, because I mean, they drive me crazy enough when I'm watching a poker vlogger and there's a video interface where they're talking about hands. Even when they show the graphics on the screen, I'm still I don't need a 5-minute analysis on every goddamn street. Just tell me what happened.
He clicked, I clicked back.
But to do it with no visual representation whatsoever in a fucking podcast, I'm absolutely not having that whatsoever.
So what did you talk about in a poker podcast?
So part of it was some of the big events going on. Like, we kicked off right as the main event was happening. So we talked
In
about
July.
Yeah, so we talked about some of the bigger bust outs. We talked about some of the surprises, some of the chip counts. We were trying to keep track of the number of players and, estimated payouts for first place, that kind of thing. Some of the bigger events that have come around, like if we were doing it now, we'd talk a lot about like the Aria and the Win switching to Big Blind Ante. And things like that. And then we talked about local daily tournaments around town. We talked about like the TI going from being the best post 7 p.m. nightly tournament in town to probably one of the 5 worst in the matter of about 6 decisions that they made. There's the things like that and how they've mixed it up. And then the guy I was with was a professional player, grinds 1-2 for a living. So he would talk about his results and how he was doing and, things where he wanted to improve his game, free roll, shit like that.
Oh, cool. And why'd you stop?
Don't have time. And trying to edit. Because part of the problem is, and maybe I'm an asshole, but...
Well, you're definitely an asshole.
Well, yeah, okay. So I'm definitely an asshole. But when it came to the podcast, any, long pauses, anytime we couldn't collect our thoughts, anytime somebody did, the tongue click, like that kind of shit, I would stop and...
What if they were Ethiopian? And they're just speaking.
Oh, God.
Oh, why y'all laughing? That's not racist. I'm asking that they speak in clicks.
You live with this. I don't know why you're giving me a look.
Free pizza! Anyways, proceed.
So, we would put out 45 minutes to an hour of content. It took me about 5 hours to edit the fucking thing because I couldn't live with hearing those clicks and those pauses and the collecting our thoughts. And we would get 4 listeners per episode. And eventually I just said, this isn't worth it. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the stress. Plus, I don't have the fucking time anymore. With this fucking semester's crazy for me. So I'd just rather sit here, ramble about sports for an hour or so, and then let you do the fucking editing.
Fair enough. There you go. So, fair enough. I don't know. The poker, you had me kind of, you might have had a 5th listener. I was kind of interested in a poker podcast.
Believe me, the content that we put out was good. It was interesting stuff. It was good information. I thought the fucking theme song we had was fantastic, so I was happy about finding that.
Where can I find this?
It was, the YouTube channel was under Vegas Poker Network. No.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Vegas Poker Network.
VPN?
Yeah. No, maybe
wasn't like VPIP?
The name of the podcast was Seat Open in Sin City.
Cute.
Cute. That's what you were going for.
Yeah, that's exactly the target audience right there. Thank you.
You should just get an Ethiopian guy on your podcast, and then every time any of you are speaking, it may just sound like he's trying to interrupt you. You're like, it's clicking, and it's like, no, that's just dialogue.
Yep, that's the one.
Get it.
So, just food for thought.
Yeah, we paid a whopping $20 to get that logo made for us from
Let's see the logo.
From Fiverr.com.
I just bought one on Fiverr.
Did you?
For mine.
Nice.
Oh, now you can both not do podcasts together.
Hey, all right.
All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Don't forget the charity tournament April 14th at South Point, like we were kind of talking about. We'll all be there. You can meet and greet, or you can play some poker. Donate to a good cause, chaipoker.net for more information, or you can contact South Point if you have any more questions. Also, we will see you next time, probably doing a baseball preview. I know Spike's eyes got real big on that one.
Oh, fuck. I got a friend of mine who watches more baseball than you and I watch hockey combined. This dude only absorbs baseball. That's his entire life, and I keep meaning to ask him to come on and talk about it.
He must be hanging out with the guy who only absorbed basketball all the time we heard about, months ago.
They're actually roommates.
These two
I was
guys.
kidding about that. No, the basketball guy, his schedule got fucked because now he's working the 3 a.m. shift, and now this is when he sleeps.
Because I was laughing. I'm like, yeah, some guy who only eats, breathes, and dreams and drinks basketball Well, where the fuck is he? I haven't seen him. And now the baseball guy shows up. Are they roommates at like Neverland Ranch? Does this place exist? Or?
If by Neverland Ranch you mean like Southern Highlands, then yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, we may have a Major League Baseball expert and enthusiast on the next podcast, but don't hold your breath. So, anyways, you can catch us. You can catch us on all of our Twitters. You have Spike McAwesome. You have at TokenTony89, and you have me. I tweet at the Vegas Squares.
Catch us on Forward Mile.
Yeah, we are still on the Forward Mile Podcast Network, forwardmile.com. Subscribe, sign up, let them know we sent you, and you can get lots and lots of sports information and daily fantasy sports information as well. You can also hear us on 12 Ounce Sports Radio Tuesday nights and Saturday mornings, Tuesdays at 8 p.m., Saturdays at 11 a.m. Click. For Spike, for Tony, for the producer, I am Aaron. We will see you next time. Thank you very much for tuning in.